right? So there needs to be a change in mindset when we go online. When you go online, you have to be suspicious of everything. Don't trust by default. So I think I mentioned earlier about 2017, and I want to just share some information about what happened and how it might have even affected some of you sitting right here. The first company, Deloitte, it's a consulting company dealing with tax, right? They basically, it's an accounting firm, so they have a number of really big clients who they deal with. In 2017, hackers were able to compromise their email servers and gain access to some of their biggest clients. So it put them in a position where, you know, the trust that they had built with their clients it's now in jeopardy, right? Almost clients there's nothing they can do to ensure that Deloitte has secured their systems. There will always be vulnerabilities. There will always be places where these hackers can get into an attack. Remember, it's not if I get hacked, it's when I get hacked. You need to be prepared and have that mindset and be prepared to act. Equifax. Who here has a credit score? Everybody has a credit score, right? So Equifax is one of the big three, and they deal with credit score management. It's a Kofi a presentation about how to improve and kind of maintain your credit score. 2017, hackers were able to exploit the website of Equifax. 147 million accounts of Americans were compromised. Let me put that in context. The population of the United States currently, based on what I just Googled on this morning, is 325 million. And 147 million accounts were compromised. This means your names, date of birth, social security, all of this information is now in the hands of people who have bad intentions. It's not if I get hacked, it's when I get hacked. Uber, right? I don't need to explain what Uber, right? This one is a little funny because they tried to do a cover-up of the security breach in their systems. So I think it was, I believe, 57 million accounts of passengers and drivers who used the service. Their personal information was compromised. They found out in 2016, and they paid $100,000 to the hackers to keep it quiet, and to kind of keep their brand in check. But I think that after Mutuesikano, the hackers still came out and publicized that Uber had been compromised. It's not if you get hacked, it's when you get hacked. Because for all these three companies, and we'll go on, Verizon, I don't know if anyone here uses Verizon as their cellular network. Verizon had 14 million accounts compromised. And you see, the problem with this is the more information which is being compromised, the more data about you is out there, right? And you become vulnerable to identity theft, which we'll get into a bit later. And the big one, I'll say the biggest till last, Facebook. I can probably say 80% of everyone here has had some kind of interaction with Facebook. If not owning your personal account, Facebook, correct. Now, there's a company called Cambridge Analytica, which was a data firm hired by the Trump campaign to basically gather information about the behaviors of people, what they've shared and what they've done over a period of time. And so they took this information and they were able to run their machine learning algorithms and determine who is more probable or who's more likely to vote for either Hillary Clinton or for Donald Trump. And so they ran these campaigns to influence your minds, because at the end of the day, when you go online, what do? By default, you trust everything you see. What now to be send a link. Say, oh, hey, this is something, yeah, WhatsApp. Yeah, forwarded messages. Or be forwarded messages from Facebook. There is an inherent trust in the relationship that we have. So psychologically, your barrier or your guards are down. You're more likely to believe information sent by your friend, your neighbor, or someone at least who's a friend of a friend. And so by doing this, you're altering the mindset of people in a way which is more dangerous than even getting their emails, passwords, or even social security numbers. Basically, 4 things that I want to run you through quickly today. I'll leave some time for questions so that what I wish I could have had was the ability to use my computer to actually show you, but maybe one of these days I can visit your local churches and we can have an actual workshop and go through some of these things. But I want to go through what we call your digital identity, right? We'll look at what identity theft is, types of cybersecurity threats, and how to protect yourself. That's the most important thing. So let's begin. What's your digital identity? Who has any idea what their digital identity is? I want some kind of answer. Anybody? What do you think your digital identity is?
Date of birth, name, password.
That's right. Date of birth, name, password.
Pictures.
Pictures. Okay, what else?
Email address.
Email address. Anyone else?
Behavior.
Behavior. What's that? Social security number. Good. All of these are valid responses which, for some of the responses, build up your digital profile. But when we talk about your identity, we're talking about something which is unique to only you, right? Even your name is part of your identity, but since 2 people can share the same name, there needs to be additional information to be able to uniquely identify. So for example, when you go to Gmail, you sign up for a Gmail account. The email address you have is unique to only you. No one else in the world has that same email address. Your social security number is unique to only you, right? Your date of birth is not unique to only you, right? So there are a combination of things which come together to form your digital identity. The reason why this is important is if I know the digital identity of Elder Opuni Mensah, then I can actually start building a profile of who he is. Once I get additional information, I'm now in a position to be able to predict his behavior before he does it. And that's how these companies make their money. In 2014, there was, so Apple denies that this was a security breach because there were no external entities who entered their system. But this is what happened to anyone who uses any Apple products, okay? Numerous celebrities, their accounts were compromised, and this is how they did it. So usually when you sign up for an account, they'll ask you about your security questions. What's your mother's maiden name? Which high school did you go to? Right? All of these questions are unique. Now, if you ask me those questions, I can bet you that 90% of you will not know the answer to that question. 90% of you do not know I lived in India for 6 years. 90% of you do not know that I was born in Nigeria. Now, I'm sharing too much information. I better stop. Okay, so with this particular compromise, because they are celebrities, guess what? They have an Wikipedia page. So all of that information is there. If you go to Will Smith, his date of birth, his mother's maiden name, his favorite pet, is all online. So all they did is, they put in the username and password and said, forgot password. The system says, okay, can you answer these security questions? They put in the questions because the answers are online. And they got into the accounts of these celebrities, and then they exposed like sensitive pictures out to people. See, it's not if you will get hacked, it's when. There has to be a change of mindset. If you don't change your mindset about how you browse online, you will always be playing second fiddle to these people who are trying to compromise your account. You need to have the upper hand and be prepared for them to come into your systems. The next one is IRS. There is a lady called Nikisha Hall. She works with the, she's an advocate for people who have tax problems. In 2014, she was convicted of tax fraud. She was convicted of identity theft. Now, instead of helping people who have tax issues and who are in the process of being persecuted for tax fraud, she was actually stealing the identities of people who came for help from the IRS. The IRS had an internal system review. They found her and they locked her up. But that was after she stole almost $400,000 from people who were innocent. They did nothing wrong. So the next thing I want to talk about is the types of threats that we need to be aware of. And I mentioned before that I want to make you to become more like detectives. And what I mean by this is that when you go online, you have to always have your guard raised up. Let me give you an example. 5 days before we flew here, I had a call from an unknown number. Usually I don't pick up, but it was a local number, so I thought, okay, maybe somebody needs help, right? So I picked up, and it was a gentleman calling me from Delta Airlines. He said, hi, is this Samuel? And if you call me, and I don't know your number, and you know my name, we have a problem. So he says he's from Delta Airlines, and then he wanted me to confirm my account. And so the first thing I asked him was, how did you get this number? So he says, you know, well, you flew on Delta Airlines on so-and-so day. I said, look, I've never flown on Delta Airlines. How did you get this number? So then he started to panic because he realized that his kind of cover story was about to be blown. The only question I kept on asking him, how did you get this number? And then, you know, so his answers were fleeting, and then he drew a blank and he just hung up. So this is a typical example of social engineering. Someone will call you, they'll try and make an association between the behaviors that you have exhibited, for example, flying Delta Airlines, right? And then they'll try and capitalize based on the trust that they establish and gain your more information. So the first one we'll look at is phishing. All right, by show of hands, how many of you think that this is a valid email? Who thinks this is an authentic email? Just by looking at it. Don't be shy. If you think it's valid, raise your hand. I mean, it has all the branding, right? Okay, now for those of you who did raise your hands, why do you think it's not valid?
There's no name.
Perfect. There is no name. If a bank were to contact you and keep in mind, if a bank contacts you with you being a valid customer, there is no way on this earth that they will ever send you an email saying, dear valid customer. They know who you are. If someone sends you an email, dear valid customer, it's 90% likely that this is a phishing attack. Now let me explain what I mean by phishing. Who knows how to fish? Who's ever been fishing? You're fishing. Okay, Doc, can you explain how you fish?
Well, the way we did it back home is you have a hook and you put a bait on it.
That's right.
And you tie it into like a string.
Yep.
And then you throw it into the water.
That's right.
Water or lake.
Yep.
And then the fish will eat the bait and then once they get hooked, and then pull it.
You pull it out. Perfect. See, he just explained what phishing is completely. So this is bait, okay? This is what hackers use to bait people into clicking compromised links. So if you look here, it says your account has been temporarily disabled This is because we suspect someone else has been attempting to gain access to your account. For this reason, we implore you to confirm your account details to activate your account with us. Click here to continue. Guess what's going to happen when you click that link? It's going to take you to a compromised website. It's going to ask you for your username and password. And once they get it, they've got you hooked on the bait, and they've got you. All of your bank information is now with them, and they can access your account at any time. Okay, so how can you tell whether this is a valid email or not? All right, so most of the time, what we usually do is we just see an email and we start clicking. Don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. When you hover your mouse, and this is why I said, in most circumstances, in most workshops I do like this, I like to demonstrate on the computer. But if you hover your mouse over that link, it will show you at the bottom of the screen where that link goes to. Now, with Bank of America, they use the domain name bankofamerica.com. If you get any email from any bank which does not have that valid domain name, it is fake, and don't click it. Let's take another example. So this is another example, okay? For your security, access to your online banking has been locked because the number of attempts to sign in exceeded the number allowed. Now, it sounds valid, and this is how they deceive people. It sounds very valid. They're telling you someone has tried to access your account. So here's what you gotta do. You gotta click here to regain access to your account. But here's the thing. Have you tried to log into your account before you did this? You'll probably find that you can log in without any problem. There's nothing wrong with your account. But the biggest thing that I want you to notice here is this link here. It says sitekey.bankofamerica.com. This is the valid link that will take you there. But what they've done is that they're showing you one thing. If you look at the bottom of the screen, right here, this is what the actual link, this is where it'll take you. sitekey.bankofamerica.com.sas-login. That is not the valid login for Bank of America. So they've tricked you into clicking a link which isn't valid and which goes to another account. So this is called phishing, okay? Amazon.com. So another clear indicator that sometimes you're dealing with nefarious people is grammar. Some of these people are not English speaking by default. Some of them are Russian, some of them are Indians. I don't want to be racist, so I'll just say they could be from anywhere, all right? So look at the grammar here. Thank you for shopping with us. You notice this? We thought there's no space here. Grammatically, this is wrong. Look at the double period signs at the end of this. This is wrong, right? Amazon.com, they go through a lot of evaluations to make sure that the copy that they send out to their customers is accurate, right? So this is another clear example of another phishing attack. And so with Amazon, let's say if you have an Amazon account, you'd be like, I didn't order anything. So what do? You're going to click on orders, and it'll take you to another bad site. And this is something similar, but this is more visible. So this is another example of a phishing attack. And it says, you recently changed your email address at Amazon.com. Ask yourself, did you do that? You probably didn't, so you should actually go to your Amazon account first and verify if anything has changed. Then they tell you to click this confirm button, this yellow button, to verify that your email address that they say you changed is correct, right? Now, if you click on it, this is the link that it goes to, iskum.com. If you look at the domain, it's a registered domain for, I think it's a country in Montenegro. And they are obviously not associated with Amazon.com. So the lessons from these emails specifically are, you have to really be vigilant. Don't just click. Even if you think that it's a valid email and you're not sure, it's better to call customer service than to just click any of these emails. Another example is this with Facebook. Once again, do you notice there is no name? It just says, hi, here's some activity you've missed on Facebook. Go to Facebook and you click there. If you click on it, this is the link you will be taken to. And there's another attack called ransomware. Now, all of these things work together. So phishing, social engineering, and ransomware. The first line of attack is social engineering, getting you to trust the email coming through. Phishing is where they actually take you to a compromised link. Once they get you there, you can then download, accidentally of course, some malware which could encrypt your computer. We'll get to that. So all of these are various examples of phishing attacks. Once again, look at the link. It's actually just an IP address, 115.145.129. These are all not valid. So there are people out there. I go to job every day as a software engineer. There are other people who go in different professions, nursing, doctors. You work legitimate jobs. There are people out there whose legitimate job is to hack accounts. That's what they're paid to do. 9 to 5, every day they go, they sit behind a computer. Their job is to hack into your systems. And they're constantly doing this. They have commissions based on the number of accounts they can get into. Recently, I had, I think, for the past, I think 2 months ago, every week I would get these serial numbers which said, sorry, you need to put in, I think, this 4 digits in order to gain access into your Facebook account. So I knew that somebody was attempting to hack into my account by clicking forget password, right? So keep in mind that there are people who are out there to do you harm. So you need to be aware and more vigilant. Okay, next is ransomware. 3 months ago, someone at our company clicked on an email which downloaded a virus onto their computer. It encrypted their computer, and they got something like this on the screen. So this will block access to any functions on your computer. You won't be able to click home, or if you're a Mac, you can't do anything. Your whole hard drive is encrypted, and then they'll set you a time of 41 hours or 47 hours to pay them so that they can unlock your computer before you get access back. If you ever get infected by ransomware, it is one of the most difficult, one of the most trickiest to ever get out of, because the person who now has control of your computer will not give you access until you pay them. Usually, if you're on a network, disconnect from the internet. And then you can call the cops. You can go to the computer geeks at Best Buy. These are people who can help you in some way to try and regain access. But here's what I do. I have an external hard drive, which I keep all my files on. And so all of my files go to my Dropbox account in the cloud. And so even if you were to encrypt my hard drive on my computer, I still have access to all my files in the cloud. So I wouldn't really care. I'll just throw away my computer and buy a new one. So there are various ways to get around ransomware, but you just need to know. So let's look at how to protect yourself. Number one, use strong passwords. Okay? I think it was my dad. One of his passwords, I won't tell you what the password is, obviously that's a security concern, I won't share that with you, but it was very basic. And I think that we need to be more aware of how to set strong passwords. So, can anyone tell me what before I show you the screen, which has the actual instructions, can anyone tell me some of the best ways, or some of the best ways to set a strong password? What are your thoughts?
More than 8 letters.
More than 8 letters, thank you. Yes?
Lowercase, uppercase, numbers, figures, whatever.
Very good, yes.
Base it on a phrase rather than a word.
I like that, and I think that's the best answer. So a lot of the times, and here's how we get into problems. So these security professionals, they'll tell you, if you want a strong password, use uppercase, lowercase, use numbers, use dollar signs, use control characters. Who's going to remember all of those passwords, right? it's very difficult to remember. I have almost 330 different online accounts. And it is impossible for me to remember, if I were to use that same formula and to use uppercase, lowercase, underscore, you just can't remember. Our minds cannot take that amount of information and store it over a long period of time. So as she said, the best thing to do is to use a phrase. Now we have the advantage of speaking a second language, right? So most of my passwords are in Chi. Most of my passwords are in Chi. And so by doing so, let me give you an example. Let's say, Kojoni Ama Ekosku. Okay? Right? I can remember that so easily. I mean, it's just instantly. Kojoni Ama Ekosku. Boom. Right? And because I know, like, for example, air, I can change that air with a 3. Right? And I can change some of the other characters maybe with a 0. But what I want to avoid is using dictionary-based words. For example, the most common password is password. You wouldn't believe it, but it's true. The most common password that people use is password 123. Number 123, that's also, oh, it's secure. Very good. Right? The best password that you can use, so this screen will tell you to make it impersonal. For example, and one of the things I've seen a lot of people do is that they use their birth dates, okay? So I was born in 1970 on the 4th of April, whatever. Please don't do that. Because what's happening is you're leaking additional information into your password. And so if someone is able to compromise your password, they now have your birthday. Make it long. The only way you can make it long and remember is by using a phrase that you can remember. Okay? I'm serious. Now the 1, 2, 3 or any other control characters, that's awesome. And you're good to go. Because I know Mutu and Katikwa is something that is, kind of good, so we're probably all gonna remember, right? Okay. So let's go on. All right. Now this is the most important thing that I want to stress. If you leave here today and you don't remember anything I said, just remember this. Don't reuse your passwords across different accounts. And here's why. Okay. We started based on the premise of our conversation that no matter what we do, no matter what you and I do in terms of security, encryption, whatever, at some point, someday, it is most probable that your account might be compromised. Not because of something you did, but because of something else somebody else did. And because of that, if they are able to compromise one account, here's what they do. So they use, let's say, kojo@gmail.com. His password is password123. That same username and password has been used for his bank account, Bank of America. So they have kojo@gmail. They'll use those same credentials and try it on Bank of America. Maybe it didn't work. Okay, let's try Wells Fargo. Ha, we're in. Because he's reused the same credentials, username and password across different accounts. The best way to protect yourself is to ensure that you don't have the same combination of username and password across different accounts. But somebody may ask, okay, so I have, and let's just say this is a minimal number of accounts. Let's say I have 20 accounts. I have my bank accounts, my utilities, Comcast, DirecTV, all of these accounts. How am I supposed to remember all of these passwords? Here's how I do it. There's something called a password manager. And the one I use, and me and my wife use, is called 1Password. Now, when I first, like I said, in 2014, when I got that email that one of my accounts had been compromised from Dropbox, I looked for solutions of making sure that I could track my passwords, what they were, and if they were being used across different accounts. So this application is probably a lifesaver for many people because I can't remember all of my passwords. So Here's how it works. You create one master password, okay? Use anything you want, or whatever it is, right? Create that super long password, and then you let the password manager manage all of the other accounts. So with my Bank of America account, I don't know my password. I don't know the password. My password is 24 characters long, and it's stored in this application. Now notice here, it says all items. These are all of my accounts, 359. When I first opened the account with one password, it detected that I had 233 reused passwords. This is me, okay? 233 reused passwords. 22 of those passwords were vulnerable. Vulnerable means that they had been found to be in breaches which had been circulated around, okay? 19 of those passwords were weak, and there were 15 of those passwords which were for unsecured websites, okay? So if this is a picture of what is going on in my digital life, I wonder what's going on in your life, right? So it's important to at least know how your passwords are being created in the wild. Now here's another thing that you also need to recognize. Let's say my wife has traveled, or let's say that I'm in the hospital. Okay, this is another reason why you should consider using a password manager. All of our digital information, our account information, I usually handle all the bills, all of the accounts, all the payments, I handle it. If I were to be in the hospital at any point in time and my wife needed to take over, where would she get the passwords? How would she know how to control the home? And this is what we found when we were kind of looking at how to store and manage this information. She needs access to all of this information as much as I do to make sure that in case I'm not around, she can go to Bank of America, log in, check. She can pay Comcast, DirecTV. She has access to all those passwords. It's not ideal to write them down. So the password manager, I have it on my phone. It is inside of my browser. When I go to the Bank of America account, there's a little icon in the window, and I can demonstrate this in another setting. But you click on it, you put in your master password, and then it will show all of the other available passwords which you have actually entered in. Another question. Okay, so if this application, now I just said, what did I say? I said it's not if I will be hacked, it's when I will be hacked. So what happens if someone hacks into one password, right? It looks as if they get access to everything you have. But here's why I still choose to invest in this. The security system that they designed, the master password that you create is never stored with them. It's in a digital safe in our bedroom. It's in a lock, and it's placed in there. Only my wife and I know that password. So even if hackers were able to get access to the information, they could never get in because that master password is not stored with this company. So I'm better off having this information for me to at least ensure that my passwords are different, that they're secure, that they have analytics which can run over my passwords and see if they've been used out in the wild. One password, check it out for yourself. Okay. Third of all, two-factor authentication. For most websites, most modern websites, when you attempt to log in, if you have two-factor authentication enabled, okay, let me back up. What's two-factor authentication? Whenever you attempt to identify yourself, you usually use something we call a factor, okay? That factor is either something you know, something you are, somewhere where you are, right? So something you know could be a password. Something you are could be your biometrics, your thumbnail on your iPhone, right? That is also a factor of authentication. So by using two-factor authentication, you're saying that I'm going to use not only my username and password, but I'm also going to use something else. which is my cell phone. So I will log in with my username and password. The system will say, okay, that's correct, but now I want to make sure that it's actually you, so I'm going to send a code to your phone. Once you get that code, put it inside, and then I will know that this is actually you. Now, the reason why this is important is because anybody can get your username and password if the systems are breached, but no one has your cell phone. Only you have your cell phone. Now, if you if you allow your cell phone to be stolen, that's a whole different case, right? But two-factor authentication is an additional layer of security that you can add to every account you have. Most sites have it. For example, on Facebook, if you log in and go to your security section, so security and login, it says here to use two-factor authentication. It will ask you to put in your phone number, and then it will send you a code, and from that point on, anytime you try to log into Facebook, it will send you a code and ask you to put it in. Number 4, keep your system up to date. A lot of people ignore the monthly updates that you see. Now pop-up will cry hat, just click and ignore it. Don't ignore it. These are security fixes that companies like Microsoft and Apple, their researchers have found that could pose your system to be vulnerable to attackers. So whenever you get those updates, make sure that you update your system and that you just don't ignore them. Number 5, and I wish our youth were here because this is probably the biggest thing for them. Because a lot of us share too much information on social media. So for example, we're traveling to Arizona for the PaGAF camp meeting. And then I'll go and broadcast on Facebook. I'm so excited, going to PaGAF 2018 camp meeting. But here's the thing, by doing that, the circle of friends that I have, and their friends' friends, and their friends' friends, all might see that update. So they know that I'm no longer at home for this period of time. And so if someone, what's the best time to rob my home? When I'm not there, right? So it's not only information about where you are traveling to, but information about general behavior. And here's why I say this, because there are now something we call machine learning algorithms. It's basically a process which takes a large chunk of data and it learns behaviors, it learns habits. If every morning you post on Facebook that you're doing something at 8 a.m., they now have recognized a pattern for you as an individual. They can sell this information. Have you ever wondered how Facebook gets their money? Okay? All of the information that you freely give to them, they run them through their computers, they analyze, and they get so much information about your behavior. They build a profile of who you are, and they say, hey, we have this information. Who's the highest bidder? If we sell this to you, you can now channel your advertisements to this person, and you're more likely to get more sales for your product. So the more information you're giving out to Facebook, the more money they're making, really. So you really have to be careful about the type of information that you're sharing on social media, especially our kids, because this information will never die. Whatever you share on Facebook, I mean, they'll tell you that it's deleted, but they always have some really long old backup system somewhere for archive purposes. It lives somewhere. I think lastly would be not to share any personal information. Just be aware, having that self-consciousness to know that if you were to give out personal information, we talked about your digital identity. Don't share your social security number on Facebook. Don't even send out in an email. Use if I want, so there were times where my wife needed my social security number for something we were applying. Now, I'm at work, she's at work. What's the best way to transmit that information? Don't transmit it. I have it in my password manager. She logs in, she knows the master password, and my social security number is in there. I do not need to send an email where someone else can compromise those emails, right? So be careful what you share. Be careful how you share it. Some of us will share our password via text message. All of the text messages are encrypted. But what if someone steals your phone, right? So you really, really have to be thoughtful about how and when you're sharing information. Lastly, I put this in because it's a fun fact. So I used to use a 4-digit passcode, right? Simple to remember. It's what the banks use. And you're in, or you can get it easily. By increasing the number of digits to 6, you make it harder for hackers who manually can have the time to try every single combination. 2 to the power 4, it's now 2 to the power 6, right? Of all the combinations for that password or that passcode. So whenever you get an option to choose a passcode, always choose something longer. If you can't remember, what do you use? And someone tell me. 3 words, but what else? What would you use to store your passcode if you can't remember it?
Write it down.
Never write it down. No, please don't do that. 1Password. If I had a prize, I would give it to you. But use a password manager. Because our brains don't have I have 360 different online accounts. There is no way I can manage all of those every single day. So your best bet is to use a password manager. Don't write your passwords down. If someone breaks into your house, that's the most common kind of identity theft. When you throw your trash away, shred all of your important information, your bank accounts and all that information. Don't just throw it out in the garbage, shred it. And you'll be more likely to hopefully stay safer. Questions? Yes?
What about if you work for a company? I used to do some softwares. I go to a software company and I buy some old computers and phones. And you find out, for instance, you work for Kaiser, they give you company phone. 1 year, 2 years, you return. Did they clean those phones? Because the phones I get it from Softblast, you can see there's a lot of information, even social security, everything is on the phone. You get it back to the company. But did they clean it before they put it outside there for people to go and buy it?
It's a very good question, and I think that a lot of companies don't have good policies in place to ensure that information which are used by employees are properly deleted. Even for a hard disk, you can format a computer hard disk, but it still has some recognition of the information there. There's something called a soft and a hard delete, where you just basically wipe everything off. What the company that you're getting information from, is it Kaiser? They should be wiping everything off clean before they hand it off. And I would encourage you to notify them of that there is still information on the cell phones and on the computers, because obviously, you know, we're Christians, right? We're not going to do anything with that information. But there are other people who would take that information, sell it on the black market, and then they would be able to steal the identities of these individuals. So yeah, that's a very good question. You should be careful when you buy a new device, or you buy a new laptop, you buy a new phone. How do you take care of your old one? If you are not planning to use that old computer, take out the hard drive, smash it with a hammer, and throw it away. Smash it with a hammer and throw it away if you don't know how to format that hard drive. Because it's still, even if you format, I have tools that I can use to recover some part of that information. So if you have an old system that you no longer want and you don't have the tools necessary, just unscrew the bottom, take out the hard drive, smash it with a hammer, and dispose of the actual computer and the hard drive separately, so that no one can tie in that information. Yes, next. Doc.
Just a contribution to what you said, and especially we as Ghanaians and having the second. There's no reason why any of us here should use common, English phrases to create password. What my wife and I do is we can pick words from the Bible or something from our common language. That is very difficult for people who are outside of our language. Even if you're Ghanaian, very difficult to get that. You can use names of towns or suburbs.
Yep.
Sometimes, I joke, like, you can create a password like, Bompata with Chico for perfect.
That's right. Please listen carefully and
Caution. Sakawa.
like I said before, if you do not remember anything today, remember what Doc said. Don't reuse passwords and try and use common, well not common, but try and use phrases in our dialects, whether it's Cree, whether it's Fanti, whether it's Ga. Use those as opposed to using English. Okay, I'll come here, and there.
So my question is that in case you are the unfortunate one and you've been hacked, what are the steps to do to protect yourself?
That's a good question. So, Equifax, when their systems were breached, they set up a site which attempted to notify users, like you could go in there and try and check to see if your account had been compromised, but it didn't really work. So there are various companies who offer identity theft insurance. My wife and I use a company called Xander. They give you up to $1 million in identity theft recovery. If ever you're hacked and somebody steals your identity, see the problem with identity theft is when somebody has your digital identity, they can go to a bank, they can borrow money in your name, they can go buy a house in your name, and they can do so many things because they have your valid, trusted digital identity. Now, if you have already been hacked, if you've already been breached, I would recommend that you talk to some of these companies. I wish I had some references, but maybe we can talk after. But there are specific companies who will assist you to try and recover your identity. And if it's just an email breach, right? So there's a site that I use. I have a computer program which I have about, So let me talk about this briefly. You do not always have to use your real identity, okay? For example, go to the Washington Post. If there's an article, some of them will ask you to put in your email address and your name so that they will start sending you emails and some nonsense. At that point, I gain a different identity. My other identity is Desmond Ikubutu. That's my other identity. Here's why. Your identity is something personal to you. So if there are people out there who would like to continue to gather information about me just for marketing purposes, I never use my real name. Never. You don't need to do that. That's why I have so many email addresses. So there are other examples where I'll just use Kwakunimakom, let's say at live.com. That's not my full name. That's not my full, registered name in the United States. It's part of my name, but I don't need to give you my real identity. Okay, so don't feel that you're obligated to use if you're opening a bank account, don't use a fake name, right? If you're gonna go get a car loan, you have to use your real identity. But if they're asking you just to give them information so they can start sending you marketing information, why would you need to send them, give them, your full valid information? I don't do that. I'm trying to create a personal persona for my wife, but she's still having a hard time pick a name. So we'll get to that some point. But to your question, there are resources out there for people whose identity has been stolen or if your email has been hacked. You can also monitor monthly to check and see if some of your emails. I do that. I have a program which goes out monthly to run my emails through a common database and see, out of all the new data breaches, was my email part of those? And then you can make adjustments. Also, change your passwords regularly. The number one reason why people can't change their passwords is because it's so hard to remember. But if you use a 1Password, I can change my password. Like I said, I don't even know my password because it's in my vault, that 1Password vault. So I can change it multiple times a month. And you should try and get in the habit of changing your passwords regularly, frequently, so that people cannot just, continue. Let's say they get access to one account. They cannot have a broad scope of access. There was a hand at the back. I'll come to you. Hand at the back, yes. So I can't give you any recommendations, but I do know that Yahoo was hacked, where 4 billion email addresses were exposed in terms of personal information. So if you want to use Yahoo, no. Gmail was also hacked. I think it was almost 2 billion accounts. They claimed that none of the passwords were disclosed because they're encrypted. But it's still a breach. It's still personal information that was, disclosed to people who are not supposed to have that information. So I can't give you any recommendations because there is none. It's not if, right? You got to change your mindset. It doesn't matter what email or hosting provider you use. You have to focus on what you can do to protect yourself, because you can't change their habits internally, how they store, how they maintain their security. You can't change any of that. But what you can do is to change your password regularly, don't reuse passwords, and to make sure that you have some kind of vault, like 1Password. There's another one called LastPass, if you've heard of it. That's also another option, but it's been hacked twice, so I wasn't really happy with that, so I just chose 1Password. There was another hand, yes, and I'll come to you next. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. What? Oh, the hackers are Ghanaian? Oh. So what I can say is, it really doesn't matter about the nationality. Because, like, for example, I'm sure you've all heard of these Nigerian princes, and they scam people, and they'll send you emails claiming to be Nigerian princes, that if you send them money, then this and that. 5 minutes? Okay. So there are various accounts of different people from all over the country, all over the world, from Russia. Yeah, go ahead. I see what you're saying. So, yes. So be cognizant of the fact that just because it's a Ghanaian password doesn't necessarily mean it's secure, right? That's her point. Just because you're using a Omutuoni Abenkwai does not mean that it's necessarily secure. I'll come to you next. Yes?
Okay, just a small contribution. With the emergence of AI, Google Map, right now,
okay, hold on. Let me give you the mic.
So I'm saying that with the emergence of AI, artificial intelligence, that is what it means. I mean, they can mimic your activities of the day, when you set up from your house to wherever you go. By the close of the day, they know all your activities. So, things are getting very difficult right now. And very soon, they will develop some apps, AI apps, which are able to track your whereabouts.
That's right.
And of course, I mean, the other day we were talking about naming, taking out our name.
Yep.
Somebody was worried about this. And if you Google yourself, you see so many things about you. Something that you think would never be on the internet.
Yep.
They are there. So we should be very careful. I mean, all what Koku is saying that we cannot control everything, but we can minimize it.
That's right. That's right. Just be aware. So I'll come to you, Doc, in a second. There's a hand over here, and then I'll come back to you.
The question is...
How's your mic going? I'm online, right? There are people online, so...
my question is that, once auto phone now person be able to go account.
Yeah.
Well, log in, obviously user password, username. Immediately I'll be username one. Or say
it's already been used.
I know about what's up be used your mono the because sometimes for me to suggest the amount.
That's right.
A better so be you should know and now be.
So it all depends on you, right? So Omono, that system, Makrovida, to build like a suggestion, a username suggestion box, that is designed to just help you to find a quicker username quicker. It's Krokusam@gmail.com, right? It's just to say, okay, you can add Krokusam123 to your username. Say Adia Kaya. Then you can pick another name, maybe Sam Kweku. So it's based on your personal choice. If you like it, but at the same time you're not obligated to. Is that okay? We'll come back, we'll talk later. I want to get these two hands, yes. Yeah.
The other time, we had an email from, somebody, the name was a friend we know he was studying in Germany and all these things, and the email said, oh, yeah, I came for a visit to, actually, they didn't say that Spain, Barcelona.
Yeah, it's a scam.
So, send me this or maybe just communicate. What do you do? In our case, what we did, we knew it was wrong, but we wanted to choose the best.
Yeah.
We wrote an email back in very, idiomatic phrases and all that. And that was the end of it.
Yeah, so the location services are designed to help the application give you better suggestions. When you log into your app, the picture will say, okay, allow us to track your location. So when you open, let's say, let me take Bank of America, right? Or say, give me access to track your location. By doing that, they are able to give you suggestions for ATMs around you, right? But it's not a must. There's no reason to give them access to your location if you don't want to. I would just probably say don't give anything until you absolutely need to. And if the app doesn't work without your location, then you can maybe enable it, but disable it after, because the more information they have, the more they can track. See, I'm saying time naso. One question. Yes. It's not free. Let me tell you something. I had the same mindset. And you're free, it's $40 a year. $40 a year. And I said, I would rather pay that amount every year to at least have the knowledge that all my passwords are secure than to go with the freebie. Sometimes free, and yet,
How are you sure that one is also secure?
I can tell you about the encryption and the specifics of how they secure the information after. Okay? One last one, and we're done.
Hackers.
Hackers.
Some more school here say how to hack. Most IT come. But our association of hackers, I will share every year. We share our association, we share every hackers. Companies employees won't try more hackers. I don't think that is but your Ghana cry, you
See no more rooms like this, computers and microphone go hacking to bomb pattern the enemy. Ghana phone in
So to answer your question, final question, say adding to hackers near companies, okay. So companies like Google, Microsoft, they encourage people to do what they call, I think it's white box testing. They want you to find, because they don't have all the resources to test all of their systems. They invite people, can you break into our systems? If you can, we will pay you and then we will fix the vulnerability before other people can. So it helps secure the system by employing other external people to find those loopholes, and then they'll plug them and they're done. Thank you so much. We can talk more after.
About 1:15. When we run the next program, so never, yeah, we have a games.